Hey, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to clean up the edges of your plywood projects using this birch edge banding. And you can get this birch edge banding at your big box store. You can get it online. I get it from a local dealer. It comes in a much bigger roll. I'm already probably halfway through this. But what this is it's a very thin veneer. And on one side of this veneer, it's got an heat-activated adhesive to it. So that makes it super easy because all we're going to need to do, or all we're going to need to have tools-wise to get this done is we're going to need a clothes iron and we're going to need an edge band trimmer. Apart from that, you probably just want a block that you can use to press the edge banding down and to also use as a sanding block. We'll wrap that in 220 just to clean up the edges. But this is super easy to do, and regardless of whether you're staining or painting your plywood project, edge banding is going to give you that really nice smooth finish on your edges. I don't know if you've ever tried to paint the side of plywood. It does not paint well. There's no reasonable amount of sanding and repainting and layering it on that makes that worthwhile. Edge banding makes this super easy and super fast. And it's very cheap. I think this is like $6 at the big box stores. If you get it in a 25-foot roll, I believe it is. This I think comes in a 100-foot roll or 150-foot roll. I'm not sure. But this is going to be super easy, and I'll walk you through the process. All right. So to start edge banding this hamper top, I'm going to go ahead. I've got my iron out. I've got my iron set at the highest setting it has, which is cotton linen, which is 7 on my iron. And while that's heating up, I'm just going to lay the edge banding down on my piece. I'm going to give myself about 1/4 of an inch on this side, just so that I know I'm all the way over and I've got a little bit of room to work with. And then I'm going to go all the way to this side, and then you don't need scissors or anything. On this edge here, once you have your length, you could just quickly flick your finger and snap it off and toss that aside. Once we're done there, I've seen people that like to try and flush up one side of the edge banding with the surface of one side of the piece. But I don't like that. People will do that because they don't want to do a whole lot of trimming. I don't like that. I don't mind trimming. I want to make sure that this thing melds really well and you can't see a seam here. So I put my edge banding on the center line. So I've got a little overhang on each side of my workpiece here. And once I've got it where I want it, I'm just going to go over it with the iron, and I'm going to move pretty slowly. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it because all I want to do right now is heat up the adhesive that is underneath this edge banding. I want to heat that up, and I also want to flatten this veneer, and the heat will help to do that. And once I get to a temperature here that it's uncomfortable to touch, still feels a little cool. Again, you want to make sure that you're getting a lot of heat through there. It takes a lot to burn this edge banding, so don't worry about that. But you want it really hot. You want to get that adhesive really yeah, see, now that's where I want it. So just uncomfortable to touch. And then you're going to take a block. I got a block of cherry here, and now you're going to put downward pressure and push down on this edge banding all the way across the piece. And you want to do that until this thing starts to cool down a little bit. And we're just forcing all that adhesive into those small cracks in the ply. And then on the edge, usually I'll just take something and knock off the edge. This stuff will break relatively easily. That's easier than trying to get some scissors in there and cut it. What I've noticed is when you try to get some scissors in there and cut it, or you get an X-Acto knife and try to cut that off even, you'll actually end up lifting the edge banding back off of the piece because it's still kind of warm. So I'm going to let this cool just a second. Before we continue, you just want to take your sandpaper and clean up this end. And we'll do the same thing on this end. If it's not catching, you know you're flush. And then all we need to do is trim the sides. So you're gonna take your edge banding trimmer and you're gonna align it up here against the side, and you're gonna run that razor blade right up along that edge banding and peel it away. If there's any high spots, it'll cast a shadow on there. It'll be pretty easy to see. You don't want to have a real aggressive angle on this trimmer. You also don't want to have a whole lot of downward force because you can very easily gouge the veneer on your ply. But once you've done that, all we have to do is come back and sand it. I like to keep just a little bit of an angle when I'm sanding this, just like that. To sand off any high spots that might remain and get it perfectly flush. With the piece. That side's perfect. Now just run your fingers down that and you should not feel any ridge whatsoever. And there you have it. Now you just continue that process for the next 3 sides and you're done. And you can tell just how much of a difference it makes. This now looks like a solid piece of wood or a piece of lumber, as opposed to it being plywood and you having these ugly stripes on the side. Super quick, super easy thing to do to make your projects look really fantastic. See you next time. All right, so I'm ready to edge band this piece. Now you want to make sure that you've got all your tools kind of handy. You want to have a sanding block. You want to have some 220 sandpaper. You want to make sure that you've got your iron ready and it's hot. I've got it on its highest setting, which is cotton linen at 7 on my iron. And you want to make sure that you have your edge banding trimmer available to you at hand as well. Now this is super easy. All we're going to do is we're going to take this edge banding and we're going to lay it over the edge that we want to cover. And I usually give myself about 1/4 of an inch here overhang because this edge banding will move when the glue is hot and we're pressing down it. So usually I find that a little 1/4 of an inch here will help. You know, I've got a split here. I'm just going to remove that. That 1/4 of an inch will help if this edge banding moves at all. So we've got our hot iron, and I'm going to place this edge banding right in the center of the edge of this ply. And then I'm slowly just going to run my iron down the length of this. Oh, caught that. Now on this far side, I don't know if you can see it. On this far side, I have not cut off my edge banding yet. All you have to do is very quickly with your finger, just push down on it very fast, and it'll snap right off. Then we'll go over this with the iron, get it nice and hot. You want to really melt and activate that adhesive, that heat activated adhesive that's on the back side of this edge banding. And once you've got this kind of hot enough that it's uncomfortable to touch, then you're pretty much at the right place. Then you just take your block. I've got a block of cherry here, and I'm going to run this block of cherry. I'm going to really push down hard and run this block of cherry down the entire length of the edge banding. Really, especially here at the ends, you want to push down so you get that glue in there. Your block will also help cool this edge banding a bit, which will help that adhesive set. Now I'm just going to leave this for a minute to cool down and to set. It doesn't take more than a minute or two. And once it's set, we'll go ahead and trim it up. All right, I'm all ready to go. As you see, I've already edge banded this side, so you can see how smooth it is. We're not seeing those layers apply anymore. I'm gonna do this top side now. You wanna make sure that you've got pretty much everything at your disposal, all your tools that you're gonna need to do this. I've got my iron, it's here at the highest setting that the iron has, which is cotton. And what we're gonna do is just take the edge banding and lay it on top of the ply here. I'll usually give myself about 1/4 of an inch play here on this side. Then on the other side, all you have to do is really, with just a quick flick of your finger, you can press it down and it'll snap right off. And then we can center it. I've seen some people, they like to take one edge of the edge banding here and try and flush it up with one side of the project because they don't want to do a whole lot of trimming. I don't particularly like that idea. I keep mine right in the center of the ply. I don't mind trimming both sides. It doesn't take that much work. But now that I've got it all to the right length, I'm just going to go over it with my iron, and I'm going to get it nice and hot. And you want it very warm. To activate that glue that's on the other side of this edge banding. Because that glue is going to have to be basically liquid, or almost liquid, to force into the cracks of that ply. And I'll generally do this until the surface of this is uncomfortable. It's hot enough that it's uncomfortable to touch for any extended period of time. And I'm there. Now, I wasn't applying a lot of pressure with my iron because I know I'm going to come back with a block. And I'm going to use a block to really push down on this edge banding. You don't want to push side to side because while it's hot, it will move. It will also move long ways. So you want to make sure that you've got that little bit of extra to account for any movement that does happen while you're pressing this in. Your block will also help cool this down pretty quickly as you're going over it. The heat will transfer from the edge banding to your block. I don't know if you saw me flip my block, that's why I do it, to try and cool that edge banding down just as fast as I heated it up so that I can get an adhesion to this ply and I don't have to worry about this peeling back up because it's too warm. So generally I'll give that a second to cool down, and it's really cold in here, so I think we're good. Now to knock off, I told you I keep usually about 1/4 of an inch here to make sure that I have room to play. But this needs to be trimmed off. You can't trim this off with your edge banding trimmer. You've got to do something else. People use scissors, people use razor blades. You can use whatever you like. I'm just going to use my block, and basically I'm going to hit this at a 45, and you'll see that will basically snap that right off. And because I'm hitting down on this, I'm not risking peeling up the edge banding. Okay? Now that the edge banding is on there and it feels pretty cool, we're going to take our edge banding trimmer and we're just going to run the trimmer up the side and just shave off that thin strip of edge banding right there. And you'll see your high points will have cast a little shadow on your workpiece. And we'll come over, we'll trim the other side. You don't want a real aggressive angle, and you don't want to be pressing super hard on this because you can actually very easily get in here and gouge your ply. Now once I've done that, once I've trimmed both sides, just take a piece of 400 or 220 sandpaper, I've got 220 here, on your sanding block, and at a slight angle, be it like a 45, something like that, you're just going to move back and forth to flatten that edge banding along the surface. You always want to make sure that you're going in the direction of the edge banding. In other words, you don't want to sand like this because you will peel it off. So always make sure that you're sanding along the long arm of this edge banding. There is a little bit of glue you'll see as you're sanding through the edge banding. There's a little tiny bit of glue that you'll have to sand through as well. That'll get transferred to your piece. And so just glue it until you don't see any more glue. And I've already done this side, so I'll go ahead and sand these. Now you should be able to run your fingers down this. Make sure you don't feel any lips. I do feel a slight lip here. You don't want to have any lips on this because if you do, chances are that something will catch on it eventually and peel it off. And that is perfect. And you'll see that now on this one corner, I've got this edge banded. I've got that edge. I've got this edge, which I haven't sanded yet. And I've still got one edge with my ugly ply. So just to continue, you want to do one side at a time because as you're moving this piece around, you don't want any edges hanging off that might get caught on your workbench or your clothes. So I like to make sure that I've got one edge perfectly done before I start on another. Got a little lip here. I can knock that off. And we'll do my last edge.